very good evening to you from Mission Control Houston, and welcome to our live coverage of the Soyuz landing here on NASA TV. It all comes down to this as the one-year crew members Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko just 1 hour, 10 minutes away from touchdown in Kazakhstan after a historic 340 days in space on their first one-year mission on board the International Space Station. Right now, the pair are inside the Soyuz TMA-18M spacecraft along with Russian cosmonaut Sergei Volkov on their way towards a deorbit burn just under 17 minutes from now, which will kick off the final phases of re-entry, parachute opening, and landing, bringing these three space flyers back home on Earth down in Kazakhstan. The deorbit burn, which is scheduled to take place at 9:32 p.m. Central Time, 10:32 p.m. Eastern, will last for 4 minutes, 49 seconds in duration, slowing the Soyuz craft down and allowing it to begin its descent through the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. At that point, it'll be some 12 kilometers away from the International Space Station, where it undocked from not too long ago, a little bit earlier this evening at 7:02 p.m. Central Time. Again, that undocking, again, taking place at 7:02 p.m. Central, 8:02 p.m. Eastern. The Soyuz spacecraft undocking from the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment on the International Space Station. It initially backed away at a slow pace of just 1/10 of a meter per second after the hooks and latches that had been holding this craft in place for the last 181 days released, and the vehicle was able to back away. Following that successful undocking, which occurred while the station was flying just over the eastern part of Mongolia, the vehicle executed its two separation burns successfully once it was about 50 some odd feet away from the International Space Station. Inside the craft, Sergei Volkov in the center seat as the commander of the vehicle throughout all of tonight's events. To his left, Mikhail Kornienko in the board engineer seat, and Scott Kelly riding shotgun in the right seat throughout the night's activities. And again, the next major task, which is less than 15 minutes away now, is going to be that deorbit burn. Just to walk you through what to expect over the next hour and 7.5 minutes until touchdown. We'll start off with the deorbit burn, which again will be a 4-minute, 49-second firing of engines on board the Soyuz craft designed to slow it down and begin that descent. Then at 9:59 p.m. Central Time, so just about 27 minutes after the deorbit burn, the spacecraft will separate, the various modules separating off. And this animation will walk you through, starts off with that deorbit burn, which occurs while the station's, or the Soyuz rather, is at an altitude of about 260 statute miles. The separation occurs, the orbital module on top and the propulsion and service module on the bottom fall away and burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. Flight through the Earth's atmosphere. Entry interface comes 62 miles off the ground. The Kármán line, the boundary between Earth and outer space, all setting up for that eventual chute open. The first command to open the parachutes on the vehicle will come at an altitude of 6.6 miles at around 10:10 p.m. Central Time. First, the drogue chute released, and then the main parachute, which is designed to slow the Soyuz to a descent rate of 7.2 meters per second. Just about 1.5 meters off the ground, the soft landing engines fire, just to give it a little extra cushion to the vehicle before it touches down in Kazakhstan, with that landing scheduled to come at 10:25 p.m. Central, 11:25 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be landing to the southeast of a town called Zhezkazgan in central Kazakhstan. At this point, the search and recovery forces mobilizing, getting ready to send the various vehicles out, mainly those search and recovery helicopters, Russian Mi-8 helicopters, which will carry personnel directly to the landing zone. A series of ATVs also already making their way out to the anticipated landing site. And once all of those aircraft and vehicles are there on the ground, they'll be able to begin taking the crew members out of the vehicle, safing the vehicle, as well as setting up a medical tent and getting the crew members out, doing initial medical checks, and then actually beginning some more science right when the crew gets back down on the ground. One of the important things to remember with the one-year mission is the science does not stop just because they've left the International Space Station. In fact, all 3 crew members participating in something called the field tests anticipated to take place right after they're out of the capsule. So once they're in the medical tent, all 3 will go through a series of tasks designed to study and evaluate their capabilities shortly after being reintroduced into a 1G, a gravity environment, having them do simple things such as remaining standing, walking around simple obstacles, even lying down on the ground and recovering as if they had fell. All of this designed to better understand how we can expect crew members to react and function after being in microgravity for such a long period of time. Obviously not too big of an issue as we have search and recovery forces here on Earth, but when we send explorers to far-off destinations like Mars, they will be their own search and recovery forces, so it will be on them to safe their vehicles, do any number of things. So using these International Space Station crew members as an analog, if you will, we can understand what we can ask of our crew members when they do first take those steps on the Red Planet just minutes after touchdown. So the science continuing moments after they take their first steps here on planet Earth, and continuing over the next several months for Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko. You can be sure to follow the one-year mission on social media and on the web here at a variety of sites. The main home, nasa.gov/1year. And Scott Kelly been very active across all of his platforms, across social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, if you want to join in the conversation this evening on Twitter, be sure to use the hashtag #YearInSpace. Getting a quick look inside of the Russian mission control room in Koryov, just outside of Moscow. They've been responsible for interacting with the Soyuz craft during its departure and descent, upcoming soon through the Earth's atmosphere. We're under 10 minutes away from the planned start of that deorbit burn. Again, targeted to come at 9:32 p.m. Central, 10:32 p.m. Eastern. That deorbit burn comes about 2.5 hours following undocking. It's a fairly short day for the crew in terms of the actual procedures in the vehicle, just under 3.5 hours from undocking from the station to actually landing back down on Earth. A much shorter time than it takes to necessarily launch and arrive at the station, which is anywhere from 6 hours to 2 days. However, the crew members waking up earlier this morning, doing all of their final preparation to pack into the Soyuz vehicle. Scott Kelly taking a number of samples, final data takes for a variety of the studies that he's involved in. And again, a lot of that science going to continue once they're back down on the ground. Kelly and Kornienko were on board the International Space Station from March 27, 2015 until today. And their touchdown will wrap up over 340 days in space. And that is the longest mission ever, longest single mission in the history of the International Space Station. However, there were 4 individuals who have spent more time in space on a single mission, and they were all on the Russian Mir space station, the longest of those, Valery Polyakov, who spent 438 consecutive days. That's the all-time record back between January of 1994 and March of 1995.
10, 6, 20.
But this, of course, was the longest on board the International Space Station and the most studied, the most in-depth study that we've done on crew members spending this length of time in outer space, taking advantage of all of the advancements in medical technology to gather as much accurate and new data on these crew members as possible as we continue to refine our knowledge of what happens to the human body while it's in microgravity. This first one-year mission just pushing the envelope on how long we've kept crew members in space as we continue to look forward to sending humans in the decades to come to far-off destinations like Mars. Those missions expected to last in excess of 30 months. So obviously understanding everything before we send those crew members, very important, and using the International Space Station as that test bed just a few hundred miles over our head, a very important piece to solving that puzzle. Under 7 minutes away now from the deorbit burn. Once the deorbit burn is complete, things will begin to pick up with the separation of the modules coming just close to the top of the hour. But that deorbit burn will be the next major milestone in the return. We should hopefully get video from ground teams at the landing zone close to the touchdown. Landing weather cooperating quite well, especially for March, which can be a very dynamic time weather-wise out in Kazakhstan. You can get another look at our landing map here just to the southeast of Zhezkazgan. Maybe a bit of snow on the ground, but it's well south of the very heavy snow in the country right now. A few broken clouds, scattered clouds in the area should give the search and recovery forces very good visibility to hopefully get to the capsule as quickly as possible and hopefully give us some good views from the landing zone as the one-year crew members get taken out, get their first breaths of fresh air since March of last year, and then get to take their first steps back down on planet Earth in 340 days. So this again a view inside of the Russian Mission Control Center. They've been taking the lead on working with the Soyuz crew throughout their descent this evening. Meanwhile, the team here in Houston continuing to monitor and follow along, working with their counterparts in Russia to safe the International Space Station in advance of that undocking, which came a few hours ago at 7:02 p.m. Central Time. Judd Freeling, the flight director, leading the team inside the room today, and Reed Wiseman there, who knows a thing or two about landing in the Soyuz as he did just back in fall of 2014, is the Capcom for today. He's going to be serving as the link between our teams here and the crew still on board the International Space Station.
If not, just keep talking. Copy. Also, even if we don't have dual cam, keep reporting on the descent. We will have Russian ground side come supposed to at the maximum load. So please keep talking. That will be the condition of the descent and your condition. All copy.
And once again,
3 minutes away now from the start of that deorbit burn. Again, that will last for 4 minutes, 49 seconds. taking place when the Soyuz is at a distance of about 12 kilometers from the International Space Station. That burn designed to slow the vehicle down by several hundred miles an hour until it can begin descending through the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. That'll be the event which kicks off the rest of the activities, ultimately culminating in a landing just 55 minutes from now.
Eridani, do you copy me well? Yes, pretty well. We copy.
Now under 2 minutes and counting to start of deorbit burn.
Six 3142. We copy you on space to ground. We are standing by for the SKD cover opening. We copy, and we copy you loud and clear. We see the LED indicator, and I push the transmit button. That is correct.
And we are 30 seconds and counting from the anticipated start of the Soyuz deorbit burn.
Activation. And we are in the monitoring, the readiness mode. G3 indicator illuminated. Yes, it is illuminated. We confirm that at 6:32:40, the thrusters have fired. Or 6:32, 0.46 is the delta V and 0.2.
And so the deorbit burn beginning at 9:32 p.m. Central.
13.6. And the acceleration is 0.5. We are moving to page 106. 21 meters, 0.45. And the pressure at the nozzles is 0. 1 minute, 27.2, and delta V is 0.45. Copy.
Минута
1 minute 15. 35, and delta V is 0.46. We copy.
So again, at this point, the deorbit burn underway. The Soyuz TMA-18M spacecraft. The burn 4 minutes 49 seconds in planned duration.
0.46. Copy. And the pressure at the nozzles is nominal. 1 minute 45, and delta V is 0.46. We copy.
Минуты 54.4.
54.4 in 2 minutes, and delta V is 0.46. 215, 61.2.
Two and a half minutes so far into the deorbit burn. The visiting vehicle officer reporting the telemetry. Everything looks good. Everything continuing to function as expected with the Soyuz vehicle's thrusters for this 4-minute, 49-second burn. Again, this designed to slow the vehicle down so it can, its orbit will eventually take it through the Earth's atmosphere, setting it up for that descent. We're now under 50 minutes away from anticipated landing in Kazakhstan.
3 minutes. 82.1. Delta V 0.47. 3 minutes 15. 89.0. Delta V 0.47. We copy. 3 minutes 30. 96.6. Delta V 0.47. 345, 103.6, and delta V is 0.47. We copy.
4
minutes. 110.2 and 0.47 is delta V.
4 minutes, 15 seconds into the burn.
4 minutes, 50.
Everything continuing to go as expected with this maneuver.
And delta V 0.47. Copy. For 30. 124.3, and we're standing by for the GECA command. We confirm that the GECA command has gone through. KSD BO is open. We confirm separation and thermal sensors are activated.
And the visiting vehicle officer here in Mission Control Houston reporting the burn complete.
Okay, the general command, the main command, GECA, has gone through successfully, and thermal sensors are activated.
So again, the visiting vehicle officer here in Houston reporting the burn complete. The maneuver done successfully. That kicking off the rest of the evening's events. So with that burn occurring over the southern part of the Atlantic Ocean, the Soyuz's orbit now tailored to begin its descent once it's over Kazakhstan territory. Everything setting up for that landing just under 47 minutes from now at 10:25 p.m. Central, 11:25 p.m. Eastern.
We copied all your reports. So the burn was 1-2 inaudible. Moscow, you do not copy us? I copy. 128 is a burn. 128.1. I'm working for page 110. Eridane, we copy all. We copy all the information and your reports. Do you copy, Georgi? As far as we understand, Georgi, you're still copying us, so I will continue reporting. That is correct. That is correct, Sergei.
And so you're continuing to hear calls from the Soyuz commander, Sergei Volkov, reporting the burn done successfully. So the 128 you're hearing is the delta V, the change in velocity of that burn, 128 meters per second, or about 286 miles per hour. That's the slow down value that the Soyuz just went under. All of that designed again to change the orbital mechanics of the vehicle, setting it up for that landing. So the deorbit burn being executed right down the line, everything going as expected with it. So with that deorbit burn complete and in the books, the next thing to look forward to is the separation of the modules of the Soyuz craft itself, that coming about 27 minutes after the deorbit burn. Once that occurs, the descent module, which is the only piece designed to re-enter through the Earth's atmosphere successfully, will begin entry interface, all of that setting up for the eventual parachute opening. At that point, the capsule will be at about 6.6 miles in altitude, or a little over 35,000 feet. The drogue chute will first open, followed by the main parachute, which is designed to slow the vehicle down to about 7.2 meters per second. Right before landing, the soft landing engines fire, making the landing as soft as possible down there on the Kazakh steppe. All of this setting up for our landing tonight, 10:25 p.m. Central Time, 11:25 p.m. Eastern, just under 44 minutes away. And again, for the crew members on board, for Scott Kelly, the NASA astronaut, and Mikhail Kornienko, his fellow one-year crew member from Roscosmos, this is wrapping up 340 days in space. The pair have been on board since they launched in March of 2015, arriving at the station on March 27th. They'll have logged these 340 days consecutively in space. For Scott Kelly, he'll have totaled 520 days in space across 4 flights, being a veteran of 2 space shuttle missions, as well as 1 previous long-duration mission on board the International Space Station. For Kornienko, this will total 516 days for him, having previously spent time on a long-duration mission on board the station. For Sergei Volkov, who arrived at the station in September of 2015, he'll have spent 182 days in space across increments 45 and 46, and he'll have a total of 548 days across 3 flights, 3 long-duration flights on board the International Space Station. All told, though, Kelly and Kornienko have orbited the Earth roughly 5,440 times, giving them a total distance traveled of about 143 million miles around our planet. So a great deal of distance, a great deal of time spent for these 2 intrepid explorers on board humanity's home in low Earth orbit, on board the International Space Station, conducting a lot of very vital research in a variety of disciplines, but none more so important for their mission than the human research being done on board, as we continue to prepare our future explorers, continue to prepare our scientists, everybody who will be responsible for designing these missions to places like Mars, using the International Space Station as that tool to learn.
Really poorly. It's the first time I'm actually copying you. We copy, and we hear you 5 by 5.
At this point on the ground in Kazakhstan, a lot of the helicopters taking flight from the airport in Zhezkazgan. It's a short flight for them to the landing zone. Once they arrive there, they will circle in a racetrack pattern around the expected landing site, waiting for view of the capsule and waiting for confirmation of landing before they move in. The helicopters carrying personnel, flight doctors, other support staff to help safe the vehicle once it's on the ground there on the Kazakh steppe. They'll be joined by search and recovery force teams in ATV, all-terrain vehicles. Once there, they'll safe the vehicle and begin extracting the crew members. Temperatures hovering right below freezing out there, so it'll definitely be a brisk homecoming for these crew members, getting their first breath of air for Kornienko and Kelly, though, it'll be roughly the same weather that they left in, so a nice jog to the memory. Once the crew members are safely out of the spacecraft, a medical tent, if it's erected, will be set up for the crew members to be transferred to, where they'll do all of their initial medical checkouts, as well as the field test study, with all 3 crew members engaged in that immediately after returning. And then following all of those successful tests, they'll be loaded into helicopters flown back to Jezkazgan. And once there, have a brief welcome ceremony before it's time to say farewell for all of these crew members. Volkov and Kornienko bound back for their home base and at the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City, Russia. Scott Kelly, though, bound back here to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, and he's scheduled to get back here late Wednesday night, March 2nd, where he will have a homecoming, be reunited with friends and family, and all of the folks that have supported his mission throughout the year. So we're under 40 minutes and counting from the landing. Again, the next major thing on the timeline will be the separation of those modules. That's scheduled to come at 9:59 p.m. Central, 10:59 p.m. Eastern. Again, all 3 modules will separate, allowing the descent module with the crew members on board to begin descending through the Earth's atmosphere. That occurs at an altitude of roughly 86.8 miles, or 458,000 feet over the Earth's surface. Here you can see just a quick timeline. The entry, that atmosphere line at about 62 miles, or 100 kilometers. Begins what's known as atmospheric entry. Following that, the vehicle enters into what's known as the plasma phase, where the intense heat of reentry that builds up around the vehicle forms a plasma that can sometimes knock out communications, generally knocks out communications with the capsule until they reestablish with the search and recovery forces. And then they'll exit from the plasma after about 5 minutes, also entering their period of maximum G-force loads. The crew members typically experiencing about 4 to 5 Gs, so 4 to 5 times Earth's gravity during a nominal or normal descent in a Soyuz vehicle. They'll exit from that plasma at an altitude of about 104,000 feet, and then continue falling for just about a minute and a half before the command to open the chutes is given, that coming when the vehicle's about 35,000 feet in altitude. Pilot parachutes are first deployed, the second of which extracts the drogue chute. That drogue chute, which measures about 24 square meters, slows the Soyuz down to an initial descent rate of about 80 meters per second, down from 230 meters per second, so still moving quite quickly. Then the main parachutes release, the massive main parachute, which covers an area of about 1,000 meters, and is responsible for slowing the Soyuz down to a descent rate of about 7.2 meters per second. It also allows the vehicle to descend at a slight angle just to dispel some extra heat before shifting over to a vertical descent, those soft landing engines firing just about 1.5 meters over the ground, or rather just about 0.8 meters off the ground. A little jolt for the astronauts, but designed just to do that final slowing to a descent rate of just 1.5 meters per second. And again, all of this setting up for a touchdown at 10:25 p.m. Central, 11:25 p.m. Eastern, just about 36.5 minutes from now.
Переданный, как слышите ЦУП Москвы?
Eridani, MCC Moscow, how do you copy us?
So we're just a little under 10 minutes away now from the separation of the modules. Two of the three modules on the Soyuz will separate off and eventually burn up in the Earth's atmosphere, allowing the descent module to fly freely down through with the crew members on board. And right now, just 35 minutes away from the anticipated landing time in Kazakhstan for these crew members. Kelly and Kornienko wrapping up 340 days in space. Sergei Volkov right at around 182. Obviously been a very busy year for the one-year crew members, Scott Kelly of NASA and Mikhail Kornienko of Roscosmos. Kelly, while he was on board, over roughly 400 experiments were conducted on board the International Space Station, again in a variety of fields from material science to human research. A lot of the data from Kelly and Kornienko will be analyzed shortly after they return to Earth, but it could be anywhere from 6 months to 6 years before published results from all of the research around the one-year mission begins to be published. A number of samples from the pair will also be returned on future SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, which have the capability to return thousands of pounds of supplies back down to the Earth. Currently, the only means of doing so, aside from the Soyuz craft itself, which does have a small cargo complement. And again, as we detailed earlier, the science continuing mere minutes after these crew members are out of their Soyuz craft. They'll, of course, be brought into chairs, have a chance to acclimate themselves a bit to the weather, possibly get a small bite to eat from the teams there as they take their initial medical checks before moving the crew members over into the medical tent, which is typically set up there at the landing zone, and all three going right into what's known as the field test study, which again is a series of tasks for the crew members to execute as close as possible to being reintroduced into that gravity environment, just to evaluate their capabilities. A very important piece of knowledge for future mission planners as we continue to do a lot of work to prepare for the upcoming journey to Mars in the decades to come, sending humans out to walk and live on another planet. The mission definitely not ending once they touch down on the Kazakh steppe, and for Kelly and Kornienko continuing several months after they return, with a number of medical data takes and medical tests already planned for their return. Crew members dedicating a significant portion of their lives to advancing our knowledge for the benefit of humankind and for future explorers. A very welcome return waiting for them once they come home. And again, continuing to stand by, that separation of modules coming up in just about 6 minutes from now, 31 minutes and change away from landing today in Kazakhstan.
Area done, the MCC Moscow. How do you copy?
Передан, ответьте ЦУПу Москвы. Как нас слышите?
How do you copy us?
Передан, ответьте ЦУПу Москвы.
Eridan, MCC Moscow. Come in.
Module separation coming up in just about 3 minutes or so. From this point on, not uncommon for communication to get a little spotty with the vehicle as it continues to widen the gap between it and the International Space Station. And then as entry interface begins in the plasma, shortly after builds up around the vehicle, communication usually enters into a blackout period, with comm being reestablished by one of the circling Russian Search and Recovery Force airplanes with the vehicle following its descent through the Earth's atmosphere, usually once it's under the parachutes.
Передан, ЦУПу Москвы.
Eridan,
Ответьте,
MCC
если нас
Moscow.
слышите.
Eridan,
Ответьте,
MCC
если нас
Moscow.
слышите.
Do you copy us? Please come in if you copy us.
Передан, ответьте, если нас слышите.
Eridan, if you read us, let us know.
So just a little over a minute away from the anticipated time of the module separation. It comes about 27 minutes after that deorbit burn. The vehicle will be at an altitude of about 86 miles, some 458,000 feet. Again, the modules will separate. The descent module in the center flying free to begin its descent through the Earth's atmosphere with the crew members on board.
How do you read us?
Передан, ответьте ЦУПу.
Eridan, Mission Control Moscow.
So for now, we'll stand by and wait to see if the visiting vehicle officer gets confirmation of module separation.
The animation clearly showed module sep there.
And getting confirmation from the visiting vehicle officer that the separation of modules has occurred. That confirmation coming right at the top of the hour at 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern Time.
Iridiana, Mission Control Moscow.
So again, we have gotten confirmation from the visiting vehicle officer here in Houston, working in counterpart with the Russian flight controllers in Koryov, just outside of Moscow. Module separation has occurred, so the descent module now flying free from the orbital and propulsion portions of the Soyuz spacecraft. Things will begin to pick up quite a bit here. The next major milestone, entry interface, when the descent module reaches an altitude of 62 miles or 100 kilometers, begins its flight through the Earth's atmosphere. It will gradually build up heat, which will turn into plasma around the vehicle. The heat shield keeping the crew safe from the intense heat of re-entry. Now, though, 23 minutes, 45 seconds away from planned Soyuz landing in Kazakhstan. So at this point, the Soyuz craft approaching what's known as entry interface at that altitude of about 62 miles or 328,000 feet. This means the Soyuz beginning to pass through the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Shortly after, it'll enter into plasma. Once it leaves the plasma, pulling the maximum G-loads on the crew, all of that again necessary to slow the vehicle down, so the vehicle will be able to deploy its parachutes. First the drogue chute coming out, and then the main parachute to slow the vehicle down to a manageable 7.2 meters per second. Those soft landing engines firing just before touchdown, and then all that setting up for landing still on target at 10:25 p.m. Central Time, just 21 minutes 52 seconds from now.
Let's figure out where the thing's flying, with no clue. Huh, plasma has begun. See, right here. It has begun. Well, heating began earlier, but plasma has begun.
Inaudible?
I have to tell you, like, yep, that's inaudible. We cannot hear it. We noticed.
So at this point in the timeline, the vehicle in entry interface into the plasma So entering in the plasma at an altitude of just under 50 miles or 263 feet in altitude. All of this coming roughly 4 minutes after the module separation, 34 minutes after that deorbit burn, and we're right at about 3 hours since the vehicle undocked from the International Space Station. It's expected to exit from this plasma phase at about 10:08 or 10:09 p.m. Central Time. At that point, the crew will experience its maximum G loads, G forces, 4 to 5, so about 4 to 5 times Earth's normal gravity. And at that point, they'll be at an altitude of about 19 miles, or 104,000 feet.
Yep, there's radio from outside Soyuz. Shoot,
everything continuing to go per the plan, continuing to march towards that landing just under 19 and a half minutes from now.
I'm sure there's some recovery information on the bottom there. Also, anti-nav aircraft are awesome. That's a fact.
So a little over 3 minutes and counting since the Soyuz entered into the plasma phase. That entry guidance having begun should be another minute and a half to 2 minutes from now when it exits this and the crew experiences the maximum G loads.
The funny thing I find in KSB sometimes the maximum G loads is when you pop the chutes.
18 minutes and counting from touchdown.
Oh, not bad. Shoots pop. Oh, crap. I'm pretty sure it's not like that on Soyuz. I'm okay.
And the flight control team getting a report. All of the search and recovery helicopters have departed the airport in Zhezkazgan on their way to the landing zone. Again, all of the recovery personnel from NASA and Roscosmos on board, as well as moving to the landing zone in all-terrain vehicles. They'll be setting up in a circular pattern around the anticipated landing site, awaiting a view and confirmation of touchdown of the vehicle. And once it's there, they'll begin to descend and then set up base camp, if you will, around the vehicle so they can safe it and then begin extracting the crew members one at a time.
And plasma has dissipated.
Iridan Mission Control Moscow. Yes, we can hear you. We're reading loud and clear. 4 is overload. 5 seconds atmospheric. How are you doing? Doing okay. Feeling the pressure. Feeling the G's.
Okay.
Have a great landing, guys.
Thank
you, Georgi.
What feeling? Okay.
So getting good communication from the crew on board the Soyuz successfully through that plasma, feeling the pressure, feeling the maximum G loads that they've just passed through. now getting ready to descend under 100,000 feet.
2.4. Getting less. 4.3.
Интеграл 19.
Integral 19.
Next up will be the command to open the chutes. Should be coming shortly.
Inaudible.
Так, готовимся, прием.
Getting ready.
Желаем хорошей посадки.
Have a good landing. The Russian ground side is coming up.
Parachute deployed. Drogue. No, drogue should partially deployed, drogue should fully deployed.
And as you can see on the front board in this view of the Mission Control Center in Koryov, we're at the stage where the chutes, the command should have been given. We'll wait for confirmation from the visiting vehicle officer, but the vehicle should be just around 6 miles in altitude.
Самочувствие хорошее.
Feeling good.
Выполняли спуск в ауте. Интеграл плюс 19.
Integral plus 19.
Промах 0,1 без света.
Miss 0.1 with no lighting.
Слышу вас тихо. Это Иридан.
You're faint. This is Iridan. The crew is doing good.
Отработан правильно.
The burn was correct. Integral 19. 0.1 discrete is the miss. Inaudible.
Слышим вас тоже хорошо. Добрый день.
We read you.
Экипажи хорошие.
The crew is doing well.
В ауте.
We are in automatic control entry.
And so at this point, the Soyuz craft descending under parachutes. All the reports from the search and recovery forces indicating a nominal Soyuz re-entry, so normal re-entry for the craft. It's continuing to drift down now over the next several minutes. The targeted landing coming at 11 minutes from now at 10:25 p.m. Central Time.
Interference.
Текущая высота.
And again, just 11 minutes and counting. We should hopefully get some views from down on the ground there in Kazakhstan not too long from now.
On the screen. It shows only meters.
Я тоже 38.
I have 38.
Опа. Цепка прошла. Две.
Okay, guys.
And we're now just 10 minutes and counting.
Три береги. Ладушка, два.
Breaking up.
Заход закрыт.
And now just 8.5 minutes and counting to that touchdown. Getting reports from the field that good communication between the search and recovery forces and the crew on board have been established. The crew is feeling good, getting ready for that touchdown again just about 8 minutes from now. At this point, descending under the main parachute, which is going to slow the Soyuz to a descent rate of about 7.2 meters per second. And then just before touchdown, when they're less than a meter above the ground, 6 soft landing engines will fire to slow it down to its final descent rate.
Вращает мертвый линию.
Tuning. Copy.
And we're under 6 minutes away now and counting from the expected landing time of the Soyuz TMA-18M spacecraft. NASA's Scott Kelly on board along with Russian cosmonauts Mikhail Kornienko and Sergei Volkov. Kelly and Kornienko wrapping up 340 days in space this evening. They are landing on the other side of the world from us here in Houston. It'll actually be about 10:30 in the morning over in Kazakhstan.
Interference.
And we're now at 5 minutes and counting. Reports continuing to come in from the search and recovery forces who are in position. They've reported good comm, good communications with the Soyuz craft itself. The crew on board reporting they are doing well during their final descent.
Inaudible.
They'll be set up and ready to move in immediately after touchdown to begin setting up camp around the Soyuz craft, safing the vehicle, and then begin extracting the crew members one at a time.
Copy, confirming on the screen.
I'm landing. I'll use Soyuz from what I can tell.
Three and a half minutes and counting from the anticipated touchdown. We'll hopefully get a confirmed landing time. We're also hoping to get some video uplinks from the landing site itself as soon as possible. But again, the crew continuing to descend, everything going by the book with today's return. Just 3 minutes away from touchdown in Kazakhstan.
Высота 1500 метров. 1,500 meters altitude.
And now getting reports in from the field that the SAR teams, the search and recovery teams, do have visual of the capsule.
Get goddamn video.
Under 2.5 minutes away from touchdown.
Inaudible. Interference inaudible.
And now 1 minute away and counting to the anticipated landing of Scott Kelly, Mikhail Kornienko, and Sergei Volkov. As we're just 15 seconds away, we'll stand by to see if we can get an official confirmation that touchdown has occurred, but should be coming any second now. And again, we're continuing to stand by to get a confirmation, likely from the Russian search and recovery forces, that the capsule has indeed landed. So again, just continuing to stand by. Per the timeline, the capsule should be on the ground, but just waiting for a final confirmation from the search and recovery forces who were converging out there in Kazakhstan around the capsule. The anticipated landing time was 10:25 p.m. Central. Everything following the timeline exactly as they began their return down to Earth this evening. So again, just continuing to stand by for a confirmation from the search and recovery forces who are there converging on site that the capsule is indeed on the ground. Its anticipated landing time of 10:25 p.m. Central.
Search and rescue.
Oh, there we go.
Getting ready here.
And we just got our confirmation. The capsule landed at 10:26 p.m. Central Time, 11:26 p.m. Eastern Time. So the one-year crew returning from whence it began in Kazakhstan 340 days ago. Scott Kelly, Mikhail Kornienko back on Earth, along with Sergei Volkov in their Soyuz craft. So a successful landing down there in Kazakhstan.
Video of the Soyuz.
And you can see the center screen of the Russian Mission Control Center, Есть посадка, which roughly translates to "we have a landing." Again, the search and recovery forces reporting the capsule touchdown 10:26 p.m. Central Time, 11:26 p.m. Eastern, returning the one-year crew members Scott Kelly of NASA, Mikhail Kornienko of Roscosmos, along with Sergei Volkov, also a Roscosmos cosmonaut, landing their Soyuz TMA-18M spacecraft successfully in Kazakhstan. At this point, the search and recovery force teams are going to begin landing their helicopters, driving up in their all-terrain vehicles to safe the vehicle, the Soyuz capsule, and then begin extracting the crew members. As mentioned, we should hopefully get some live TV from the landing zone as soon as possible. And as soon as we'll get it, we'll bring it to you here on NASA TV. But the crew members safely down on the steppe of Kazakhstan. For two of them, Scott Kelly, Mikhail Kornienko, after a
I'm just going to end the video here because I'm absolutely knackered. I'm about 25. That was London Soyuz TMA-18M. Goodbye.